Welcome to the Wandering Son podcast. I am your host, Eric Villatoro, and today we'll be hearing a very powerful testimony by my friend and sister in Christ, Carol Sempero. Today's episode is very delicate, and I'm just so grateful for the grace of God upon us to allow us all to be able to be a witness to the healing power of Jesus Christ through Carol's testimony. We're talking about mental illness with someone who severely experienced it for 9 years until she was set free by the power of God. I rarely spoke in this episode because I was just in awe of everything that was said, and honestly, I just didn't want to get in the way. Carol's transparency is a gift, and I hope you listen attentively because you may have someone around you experiencing the same things and not even know it. I pray Holy Spirit speaks to you through this conversation. I hope you're encouraged. Enjoy.
A Bible verse that really has been, well, I should start with my intro, right?
No, let's go Bible.
Okay, so a Bible verse that's really been speaking to me, especially like as a reminder that, you know, I have been set free and like nothing can take that from me, is the verse of in John 8:36, which is, so if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. There's nothing that can rob me. There's nothing that can rob me of what God has already done, and He's only going to continue to do more. And so it's a truth and it's a promise that I hold dear to my heart. Even any day that I'm feeling like weakened or overwhelmed, because, you know, like He said it, He did it. Nothing can change that. He's a rock. He's our rock. Yeah. So I'm Carol and I'm 25 years old. I was married 3 years ago to my husband, Alex. And I work with kids. I was a preschool teacher, but because of quarantine, I've been nannying. So that's been really good. It's been amazing. Really, like, life has slowed down a lot. So, yeah. And I'm blessed because I have families that like really trust me to be there for their kids, you know? And then I'm also pursuing a degree in psychology, which is great because, so I'll be going back to school and I'm just like in love with psychology. Honestly, it started with like getting to know my mind, myself, and like, you know, there's always a science that backs up the truth that God already declares. Yeah. So it's like, I wanted to really get to know myself and like what really triggered things and what, you know, I know that I wasn't born with mental illness. I know it was like something that surged out of trauma. So I'm diving into that and I hope to help families and marriages and just like anyone who really needs help. And I'm here because, you know, like the Lord has really, oh my gosh, like it's this crazy thing is that we really do go through things to help others. We do. Like we gain wisdom from it. We gain understanding. We grow empathy. You know, it's amazing. Like in the moment, you don't see it that way. But when there's redemption, you're like, Jesus, like, you know, you can use me now. Like I can literally speak words of life to people because I made it out, you know? And so, yeah.
So I want to give people, you know, a little background, even as we continue right now, because I didn't know that, like the fact that you're going to go into psychology, like this is amazing. Yeah. So just a quick little background. We know each other from Ascend. So is the young adults, youth and young adults gathering at our church, King of the Nations, and that's where we've all met. And most of my guests actually have come from Ascend. And so the reason why we're here is because I saw all of our friends reposting this post that you posted. And I saw your name and I saw the title. And let me see if I can pull it up. And the title was Faith and Mental Illness. Yeah. And it said my testimony. And I was like, you know, I don't know Carol's testimony. Like I was just thinking, in that moment I realized like, oh, I don't know her testimony. So I read on, and I want to read one of the slides that basically just details everything in your life, and then I'll just let you kind of just give us some insight. I'm super excited because I think this is going to help a lot of people. I know this is going to help a lot of people. So on the fourth slide, you said, my first time self-harming was at 12. And my first suicide attempt was at the age of 13. Can you imagine? I was a child. In total, until I was 21, I had been hospitalized in a psych hospital 4 times, along with endless therapy sessions and monthly meetings with my psychiatrist. I was given medication and expected to get better, but only got worse. I was clinically diagnosed with maniac depression. A person with maniac depression is characterized as a person that experiences long episodes of depression and also struggles with mania, bipolar changes in one's normal mood.
Yeah.
That is wild.
It is. It's crazy.
Because I'm going to say this, from just looking at you, like, you know, like first impression, you're like always happy. You're always smiling. Like I didn't expect that. And you know, that goes back to, like, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. Right. And so when I read that, I was like, man, whoa. So maybe just give us just tell us about it. How did that start? Why? Let's just go through it.
Okay, well, it is true, man. They do say, you know, the saddest people sometimes have the biggest smiles, which is crazy, but there's redemption. And what happened was that at the age of 12, I experienced like hurt by someone in my family that I felt protected by. And I experienced like my first, it was like, I don't even know how to say it. I don't even know how to say it, but I was very hurt. From that, it was actually, oh my gosh, it's like I lost all sense of security.
Yeah.
I lost all sense of security in my life. The person that I felt that could protect me the most was the person that harmed me the most. So this was my dad, actually. And it's hard to say that especially because I don't like exposing my dad. I had gone through a process of forgiveness with him, but it was something that really triggered. It set off things in my life that, you know, like I never thought I would struggle with.
And could you say what it was?
Yeah. So when I was 12, I was molested by my dad.
Okay.
And he was my dad. Like, you know, anybody and any girl would feel so protected by their father. And he had like issues with alcoholism, and he had come back from a trip and he was drunk, and it was very, very sad. It was very sad. And the next day, like, he repented to me. It never happened again, but a little girl lives on with that memory forever, you know? Soon after that, my mom found out that my dad actually had a whole other family, like, behind our back. Like a whole other family behind our back. Again, that's like another betrayal. And me, I didn't know what to do. I honestly, like, I think any child that I hear, like, their parents divorcing or separating, they always blame themselves.
Yeah.
And in this moment, I blamed myself. And what happened was, as they weren't split up yet, but they were going through it. And to get their attention, I started to cut. I literally just started to cut. And I realized that was bringing them closer. That was bringing them closer together. Because through this whole time, like, I still loved my dad, you know? I still love him now. Like, I love him so much. And I always felt the need to protect him, which is weird. It was so weird because my mom, my mom, everyone would, like, talk bad about him or say something like bad about him, and I would defend him always. Like, it's crazy. So, like, I started getting their attention by cutting, and, like, I think at some point in middle school, like, my counselors, my guidance counselors, brought it to my parents' attention because I was doing it in school. And they actually one of the administrators drove me to the hospital, and my parents both went. And I felt their love again. I felt like nothing was happening. Like, like, they were there for me, you know, they loved me. After that, like, I think, like, closer to the time when my dad was, like, slowly leaving the house, I found some pills in his cabinet. There were some sleeping pills, and I was just done. Like, I was literally done. I didn't know what was really going to happen. I was just, again, it was all for attention.
And you knew there were sleeping pills? Like, you knew what you
I knew. Yeah, I knew. It said it. So I just took a whole bunch of them. And I remember, like, for like 30 minutes, I stayed in my room, and then I started getting all loopy and hazy-eyed, and I come out of the room, and my mom starts freaking out because she realizes, like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm over there hallucinating. It was crazy. Like, she took me to the hospital immediately. I was hallucinating, seeing things that weren't there, talking to things that weren't there. Like, what was really crazy that I knew that something bad could happen to me in the midst of that. And even though I didn't know God, I started to pray, and I was like, God, don't let me go. Like, don't let me go. Save me from this. When I got to the hospital, they gave me some charcoal, like, liquid, which is used to, like, basically pump out your stomach or make you, like, gag everything up. And it was terrible. Like, the experience was terrible. Like, my first experience ever was so terrible. And the next day, they told my mom that they were going to take me to an adolescent psych hospital all the way in Virginia, which was like an hour away.
And how old are you again? This is 12, 13?
Yeah, I was 13, my first. Yeah. So,
wow.
So it was like really crazy. And that's when they identified or they suggested what I had, which is manic depression. And so, like, how he explained that is I had several periods of, like, serious depression, but then I also had very, very drastic bipolar mood swings. It was, like, really crazy, very impulsive. I was a very, very impulsive little girl. And, so, like, they characterized me as that. And they gave me pills. So I took them for, I think, like, a couple of years. And I went to my psychiatrist. Like, I think I switched psychiatrists like maybe 4 or 5 times because I didn't find one that was, like, to my benefit. Yeah. And therapy, it was more like a self-help experience. Like, they would ask me questions like, I can't help myself. I'm here for help. I can't help myself. So help me. And it was never like, I kid you not, like, they never were able to help me fully. So throughout the years, because of, like, what my dad did to me, it developed it planted the seed in me where I was very sexually immoral. I was, it is what it is. Like, when the devil comes in, he plants a seed and it just goes from there. Yeah. And I remember it started in middle school, like, where girls would just start bullying me. They would call me a slut. They would call me this. And I was a little girl. Like, at that point, I wasn't doing anything yet, but they started to name me these things, or, like, say all these things about me. And, I was very weak, and I only wanted to be accepted, I guess. And what I started doing was acting upon what they were saying. So if they were calling me that, then I must be that, Yeah. So I it was very intense. It was way too much for someone my age to handle. And so throughout the years, that's what happened. And I depended a lot on, like, male, because, obviously I had that dad wound. So I depended so much on male response to me. Yeah. And so I sought a fatherly or protective figure in every man. And, like, that's obviously not healthy. Wow, yeah. So, every time I would feel rejection, or every time I would feel, like, this type of, like, oh, so you're going to abandon me too? It was like, again, for attention. It became a habit. For attention, I would cut. For attention, I would overdose. For whatever. And throughout the years, I got hospitalized like 3 more times after that. they were like a week at a time. It was like a while. It wasn't like 2 days. It was like a week. I think the most that I've been at a hospital was like 2 weeks. So
wow.
and they do a lot of like group therapy in there and like individual therapy. And, it's, again, I always say it's like self-help. Like you cannot with something like that, you cannot really help yourself. You can't.
Right.
And, again, through all of this time, I did not have a relationship with the Lord. I knew that God existed and I knew that I could pray to him, but I was never believing in something. Like I was never like truly believing that something would shift. I was never truly believing, And every time I would ask the Lord to rescue me, and he did. Every time that I overdosed, he rescued me. Like I didn't, like the doctors would tell me, if you would have done one more, you don't know what could have happened. You don't know if it would have entered like your bloodstream in a drastic way. And it was just scary to hear that, And obviously with that came a lot more shame, because now I wasn't just the slut that everyone was calling. I was a crazy psycho girl that was cutting herself, that was self-harming and overdosing and just being crazy. And that was really hard.
Did people, like even at school, ever try to, ask you or try to talk to you or?
No, not at all. I do have a best friend though, and I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky because I've known her since elementary school. And she stuck with me through all of this. Wow. Like she stuck with me. Like she didn't care that people were calling me these things. She didn't care if she was going to be an outsider like me. Like she didn't care. She just cared about my heart. Wow. And I honestly think that if I didn't have her in my life, like I always think of her as a little angel sent from the Lord, because if I didn't have her in my life, I really wouldn't have had anybody. I wouldn't have had anyone. Yeah, so she was the only one, and the crazy thing is that she's pursuing psychology for the same reason, to understand.
No way.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so she was the only one who was always there for me, and she doesn't know the Lord, but she knew that if I got to know the Lord, she knows the Lord is good. So she knew if I got to know the Lord, I would probably have a chance of making it out. And she would encourage me throughout the years, but I would always reject it. It's just
wait. So let me understand that really. Wait. So she didn't have a relationship with God, but she knew that, okay, if I encourage her to have a relationship, she'll have something will happen.
Yeah,
that's so interesting. And you guys were at this time when she started to encourage you in that way. How old would you say you were?
I was around 15.
Okay.
So I was around 15 years old, and she has another friend who's a believer. So she's surrounded by believers in her life. So she knew the power of the Lord. She knew what he could do. So so I always kept rejecting it, but the Lord always has his way. And but nobody ever like sought to understand. My parents didn't seek to understand. And mind you, also like my mental illness comes from, it's generational. So my dad has it, and all of his kids have some type of something, like honestly. And his dad had it too, and so it's generational. I know that as a little girl, I didn't struggle with it. It only had like it was triggered by the events that I like named. It was honestly triggered by that, because I was a happy little girl. I remember I was very happy. I didn't struggle with any of that. I felt always loved. And after all of this, like it just, oh my gosh, it was just like my whole world came down.
Okay, I want to really quick, I would love for you to give some advice to parents.
Yeah.
I recently know of a family member who went through that, right?
Yeah.
And it was through my cousin. And, he told me about this situation. And I was like, man, I know that doesn't just stay like that. Like, oh, it just happens and she seems okay, so she's okay. Right?
Yeah.
She seems okay. And I was like, man, bro, you gotta pray on that, because I don't think you're just okay from that. What would you say for parents to do, or for even siblings or people that know a little girl or a little kid that's going through that? What would you suggest for us to do?
I feel that assumptions are never good. They're never good. And if you see someone struggling, don't think of it as like, oh, they're being rebellious. Don't characterize them as being rise. Don't characterize them as only wanting attention, even though it is most of the case that's the truth. Like, we do want attention, but don't say those things to people that struggle with mental illness, because it's like it penetrates through them and it breaks them even more. It's like you're not wanting to understand, type of thing. I encourage parents or anybody that knows someone to really want to get to know the person's heart, to really want to listen to the words or what they're trying to say. Maybe they're not using the right words, but try to understand what they're trying to say and like what they're feeling or what they're going through, because you don't know. Just because you're stronger, let's say you have a stronger character than I do, doesn't mean like it's just don't assume that people can just get out of a rut. I've heard it so many times, and they're like, just pray about it or just get better. Like, you can do this. Just 5 practical tips and da da da. It's not as easy as that. Like, it's not. It's a process. It's a process of healing, letting go, and if you have the right resources to help people heal and go through that process of healing, then okay. But please, like, don't ever try to bring someone down. Don't ever try to minimize their feelings. Don't ever do that, because that's the worst thing that you can do for someone with mental illness. Like, you really cannot do that. You have to seek to understand, honestly. Wow. Yeah.
So for you started to get to know God, Jesus, at what age?
I was 21, I think. Yeah, I was 21.
Oh, 21. So there was so what happened in that gap between high school and then get into 21? Were you still?
Yeah, I was still self-harming. Yeah, I was still self-harming. I was still I think my last hospitalization, I was 20 years old. Yeah, I was 20, and it had to do with some boy. It was it had to do with some boy, again, like the rejection issues, all of those deep wounds, they always come up in situations like this, and the enemy will use whatever, to try to get you to go back to your patterns. And so all throughout high school up until I was 21, I struggled with it a lot. And not only that, so how I said, I was given medication and expected to get better, but only got worse. What happened was that I was like, this medication sucks. It was making me feel worse. My moods were I felt I'm okay, they the commercials show all this medication and they're like, but yeah, you can still experience suicidal thoughts. Yeah. I'm just then how is this helping? It's dumb. It's really dumb. So, I'm not saying don't take medication either, because there are chemical imbalances that need to be taken care of. Just like if our body is hurt, you need to take care of it. You need to have medication for it, whatever it is. So I'm not saying don't take medication. I'm just saying that for me, it didn't work. It was not working out. And then I started self-medicating. When I was 18, I started to smoke weed. A lot. And so I was doing that, all throughout until I came to the Lord. And what it caused was more anxiety. What it caused was more instability. Yeah. It was okay, fine. I feel calm and peaceful while I'm smoking, but every time I get off of it, it's this overwhelming feeling of I don't know what to do. I need it again, and I need it again. So I don't know how, like, because people also say that weed, like, is good for these types of things, for anxiety and stuff. I don't believe that. I don't, because I'm telling you, I'm living proof that that thing only makes you worse. It does. And then you keep wanting more to numb the feeling, you know? So I only got worse, and then I started doing other drugs. And I started partying and drinking, and I was just getting worse. I'm telling you, like, I was getting worse. And by the end of it, I think, like, when I was 21, I was like overdosing almost every day, knowing that, like, I wasn't trying to overdose to kill myself anymore. You know, I was trying to overdose to numb myself, or to, like, just be out, like, just out, you know. And so I wouldn't take more than I knew that would hurt, you know. I would take enough to make me just knock out or whatever. And I was, like, I'm telling you, like, I was reaching my lowest point in life. And Alex, my husband, he got saved before me. He got saved, I think, in April 2015. He was also 21. And if you would have known him back then, you would have known he was a jerk. So he had no words of life to speak to you. He was just like this crazy man. And I texted him one day. We had been broken up at this point. I texted him one day, and I was telling him that I was basically, like, done with life. I was just done, you know. I just didn't want to continue. I felt so hurt. I felt so rejected, these deep wounds, you know, that I've carried this whole time. I was just over it. And I remember he texted me, and I still have these screenshots to this day. And he's like, God loves you. Wow. And God has a different plan for your life if you only let him in. And I was like, what? Like, this jerk, like, what? Like, who is this? You know, somebody completely different. Like, what? What do you mean? And we had never talked about God before either. So it was just, like, interesting. And, like, he was also going through his battle. So he came to the Lord because he got to his low. So he went to church with his mom, and he accepted Jesus the second time he went to church. And so he, like, had already been receiving some. So he had already been a little filled by the Lord. So he had some to give to me. Yeah. And it took me about 2 weeks to actually believe that he was transforming, that he was somebody new. And I asked him, I was like, can I go to church with you? Like, can you take me? And he was like, oh, yeah, sure. Why not? And it was a Brazilian church. And at first I didn't understand. Like, when we first started going to this church, I didn't understand anything. I understood a few words because some words are similar to Spanish. But when the very first day that I went, it was like, I didn't have to understand anything. Like, Holy Spirit was ready to just just overwhelm me with his love.
Wow.
And I didn't have to understand. I really didn't. I felt like the goosebumps. I felt love. I felt this feeling that I hadn't felt in so long. That love that I've been wanting for so long. Like, I finally have it. Like, it was amazing. It was amazing. And nobody else could give that to me. You know, it was just Jesus.
Right now.
It was just Jesus. Yeah. It was just Jesus, man. And ever since, I've never looked back. I've never doubted my decision. But my depression didn't go away, like, instantly. Mind you, again, you have habits, you know, you carry habits, you carry mindsets, you do all of these things throughout the years. It's so hard to just, like, break off. Like, you know, for example, like, if I got into an argument with my mom, like, what would be the first thing? I either wanted to self-harm, or I would be impulsive in any type of way, you know? And so it was kind of like I had this flight response. And it was really hard throughout the years. Well, throughout that first year of being a Christian, or maybe two, actually, because I got set free from a manic depression last year.
Wow.
So yeah, it was actually a King of the Nations. So yeah, so it was really hard. It was, especially because like when you're a Christian, you expect that everything would just go away, you know, like you have the Lord, you should be good, like it's fine, like just pray about it, like how I said it earlier. Like it's not as easy as that. It's a whole healing process that the Lord has literally had to go through layer by layer, even till now. Like I still recognize some patterns of behavior that I'm just like, that's not Jesus. And he has to like lead me back to where did I encounter this? Where did I learn this? When did I believe this lie? And then let it go so I can continue walking in sanctification daily, right? So that happened. And last year, it was actually at Ascend at one of the gatherings, and someone came up to pray for me, and I wasn't even expecting prayer. I didn't go up for an altar call. I didn't, nothing. And I felt like the Lord was like, man, like you need to be set free, like today, like there's no going back. It's time, especially because like I was beginning to grow a lot more and mature a lot more at King of the Nations. So the Lord didn't want to leave me in the same way that I came in. So this person came up to me. Let's go pray. Okay, fine. That's fine. I've always received prayers. So I'm like, okay. And he starts calling things out, and he's like, a Python spirit. And it's a witchcraft spirit. And when like my family, from both sides, I know that both sides have practiced witchcraft. So I was like, whoa, you know, this is crazy. And he was calling it out, and he was breaking off like curses in the woman of my family. That night, I remember I was slain in the spirit. I fell to the ground, and I just felt like fire. It was fire, like from head to toe. Like it was like I was being like cleansed, like purged, you know, like it was crazy. It was really crazy. And when I had manic depression, I could not even hear the thoughts in my head because it felt like the devil was just taunting me, and he was so loud that I couldn't even hear anybody but him, you know?
Yeah.
The day after that this happened, the voices were gone. They were gone. Like that, the oppression it was gone. I knew, like, he didn't have to tell me. Like the guy who prayed for me, he didn't have to tell me. I knew it was gone. I knew it. That very next day, I threw away the pills because I had started to take a different combination of pills that were actually like helping me. But it wasn't fully helping me because if not, Jesus would have continued to let me be, you know, in that position. But I literally threw away my pills the next day without hesitating, and I haven't taken them since. And yeah, it's been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. In such in a beautiful way. And you touched on a couple of things that actually I'm very curious about, and that I wonder about actually a lot of times, especially when it comes to depression. You know, the concept of as soon as you just pray or get God in your life and everything goes away.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're saying that is not the case.
Yeah.
And so now in your newfound mind, right? God has transformed you. He's transformed your heart. He's transformed your mind. You're looking to go into even learning psychology, right? To help more, to be able to understand more the brain. But obviously, you also have a Holy Spirit understanding. So now, what do you think it is? Maybe not the fix, but how do you think we should be going about these situations with people who are experiencing these conditions?
Maybe not the fix, but the process. The process of it is, and I always remind myself, it is okay. We have to have grace. I think like everyone who struggles with mental illness, you have to have grace with yourself. You have to be merciful with yourself. You have to be patient. But it's really like understanding the importance I know it's hard. Again, like I'm going to say this now before I go into it. It's really hard to like go back into the moment and reminisce or like remind yourself of that trauma or that pain that you went through. But it is so important. It is so crucial, because when you go back with a different perspective, when you go back with the Holy Spirit and you see where he was, and you see that he rescued you, and you see that, he's the one who helped you overcome, you start seeing that whole thing with a different perspective. And that's when you introduce healing into your life. You either have to forgive someone, you have to either forgive yourself, you have to renounce like a pattern of behavior that you've had, or a mindset that you've had, like, all of those things. And you become self-aware. You really do. I think like for people with mental illness too, you have to be very self-aware. What triggers do you have? What triggers that? Because it's not it's not like, like I see that this is happening. This is superficial, right? But there's something much deeper than that. That's not the cause of what I'm feeling. The cause of it is the deep root issue that I have, and I need to be healed from that first in order for me to respond differently to this new superficial thing,
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of that. It's like, and you have to be patient. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over the course of time. But let me tell you, like, you gain so much understanding and wisdom throughout it all. Yeah. Because, like the Lord allows you to really like dissect everything, and you become vulnerable, something that people with mental illness can't do sometimes, because either they're judged or whatever. But you become so vulnerable, and the Lord literally comes in and he restores it. Like, it's like he flips it. And I don't even know how he does it. I don't have to know. I don't have to understand. He got his ways, and I know
he do it.
He could do it. I don't have to understand. That's another thing that I've had to learn. I don't have to understand what he's doing. I just have to be obedient. I have to submit my feelings. I have to, all of these things, and he does it. He has a way. Like, if you just give it to him, he can do like miracles with it. Miracles. It's, you can't do it on your own. And that's what I emphasize. I emphasize that on my post, because you cannot, like, nobody can do it alone. Like, we were not even created to do life alone. We're not. The Bible says it. That's why, Eve came in the picture, because Adam couldn't be alone. Like, he would have been way too lonely. Imagine that. He would have gone into depression,
Yeah, all the animals, he was like, nah, this ain't it.
I know. See, not even power. There you go. Not even power nor authority can fulfill your heart other than love. So the Bible tells you love one another, but allow the Lord to love you too. And it's so hard for people to allow the Lord to love them, because they've been hurt so many times. So how can I,
right.
You know what I mean? So it's just a constant thing. It's a constant fighting, but it's a good fighting. It's not like I'm like, Lord, don't let this happen to me no more. It's a fighting. Like, I know that I'm set free, so I'm gonna fight for my freedom. You know what I mean? So it's that type of So it's just amazing.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's so good. That's so good. Carol, any last words for people listening that may be experiencing some of the same things that you've experienced? Obviously, you've given some beautiful words just now, but just any last words that you have for them?
Well, I encourage everyone that's struggling with mental illness, to cling to the hope that there is a rescue, that there is a rescuer, that there is a restorer. And don't do it on your own strength, because you don't have enough strength without God, without Jesus. Like, he is our strength. And when we submit our weakness to him, we're made strong. And that's what he did in my life. And if he did it for my life, I'm like 100% sure he can do it for you too, if you do the same. So I encourage you, and please find someone that you can be accountable with. Find someone that you trust. Talk to them. seek me out. I don't know. I'm literally willing to pray for anyone. If you come to me, just I'm here. And I'm willing to be vulnerable too. So yeah, that's all.
Cool. Yeah, guys, if you guys want to reach out to Carol, all of her information will be in the description, whether you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Music. Just check the description. Her information will be there, and she's here to help you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, y'all. Have a good one. Peace.
All right. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Wandering Son podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to connect with us, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at The Wandering Son. And if you have any words of encouragement or testimony you would like to share with us, please visit thewanderingson.com and leave us a message. Also, if you have any prayer requests, if you need help, if you need community, message us at thewanderingson.com and we'll try our best to help you. I pray God continues to bless and protect you, and we'll catch you on the next episode.